All right, welcome everyone. We are going to be spending the next hour together. I would love to answer all your questions here because I know on Facebook it's a little dry. I don't get to see you. I don't know your story. So today I want to go over most of the questions that most of you are asking and make sure all that's clear. And then at the end, I want to really dive in on individually choosing some of you to even come on live, and I want to see your faces if that's okay with you, or at least hear your voice and have you ask questions that way. Okay, so I see some people joining in. Just give me a hello. Let me know where you're from, just so I can make sure you guys hear me okay. This will be recorded, so I'm going to get started, and you guys can always watch this. But couple of housekeeping items first. Let's get that out of the way. I see the questions coming in already. Hold on. So, hi Valerie from Richmond. I love it. I love hearing where you guys are all from. So, housekeeping items in your. Let me just pull up here what I wanted to share with you guys. So, don't mind that. In the Facebook group and also in the handout section, you guys have this holistic hormone secrets frequently asked questions. So please read this. We have tried to put most of the questions you guys are asking in here with the answers. So I've gone through, will my insurance cover the test? Do I have to do all the tests if I can't afford it? Which the answer is no, you do not have to do any tests. Blood tests through your doctor are just the basic things that you go in for your yearly are enough typically. And then if you have symptoms from the quiz, then you want to go in and say, look, I looked at cortisol and it seems like I have all these symptoms. Can we do some advanced testing? So you can always ask your doctor, but I know it's frustrating depending on where you live and depending on how open-minded your doctor is and what kind of insurances they take. So some of them, we can't get upset. We just have to do our best and kind of be our own advocate, but we also don't want to be too OCD and obsessed about every single test on there. You do not have to do all of them. So I will go through them with you today. So if you have your results, you'll know what they mean and what you need to do. And if you don't have your results and you're just starting out and you're like, what do I test? This is very overwhelming. I will go through all that with you. So make sure you're looking at this frequently asked questions. How to do the Dutch test, what about medications and supplements, do I stop them? So in general, I say no, do not stop anything. You want to see what you're doing probably with what you're taking if you're taking something regularly, okay? So the biggest question though I get is, what do I do with my results? I thought this was a one-on-one. Some people said in the webinar with Nick, I mentioned that I really want to make this individualized as much as I can. There's over 800 of you, so obviously that's going to be impossible for me to basically do what I do in my practice one-on-one with you, but I do want to go over if you absolutely have questions and you're stuck and you're like, what does this mean? I'm on the Facebook group every day for about 2-3 hours I'm spending in there doing my best, but I thought it's better to do this live so that most of the answers get out there. So should I post my questions? No, my results? No, please don't do that. We're going to have 800 Dutch results and 800 lab results, and you're all going to get fed up, and I'm not going to be able to catch up. And, even if you're tagging me, I have when I open my computer, it crashed last time because there's so much in there. So ask your questions after today. Once you have an understanding of what's going on, then ask a question like, I noticed my cortisol is very low all day, or I noticed that my progesterone isn't high enough. I watched all the videos, I read the transcripts, I did a search in Facebook to make sure this wasn't asked before, and then ask because it will help you and others, okay? So the point of this workshop is for you to easily understand and not necessarily interpret your results, but to have an understanding of, okay, I've got a stress issue, or I have a thyroid issue. My iron is optimal, my nutritional status is optimal, but my antioxidants are low. They're not optimal. So from week 1 to 2, all you're doing is assessing and understanding, where am I in this hormonal hierarchy, right? So That's where most of us are. But if you just started, don't worry. We're going to try to keep this going even after the 7 weeks, because I know some of you are not going to get your Dutch test or not going to get your blood results in time, and you're all panicking and worrying that after the 7 week is over, I'm not going to get any support. And that's not true. I'm not going to just leave you hanging and say, sorry, it's done, and now you got to go figure it out. So I will still be in the group, and I will do my best to answer the questions. And then you have a whole community. The whole point of this is I love when you guys are answering each other, because now you're all getting in and we're in this hormonal energy. Okay, so can I take the Dutch test if I'm on birth control pill? You can, however, I would just do the adrenal section, not the hormone section, okay? What if I'm taking bioidentical hormones? Should I do the Dutch test, or should I test my blood results? Yes, absolutely. We need to know what you're doing with those hormones. How are they breaking down? What's your body doing with it? What if you're menopausal? Then that's one of the best places to be to check your hormones, even if they're not fluctuating. So we know they'll be low, but we need to see how low. Are you normal for your age at menopause? Are you like the rest of the 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds, or are you way below them? What if I'm in perimenopause and my cycles are all over the place? You know, when do I do the test? So this is a really good question. And this one you can ask me if you're not sure, but you can also call Dutch and they will guide you. They'll ask you questions and figure it out with you. I don't want you stressing, but you never do it during your period. You never take tests during your period, because unless you're doing fertility tests, if you're not, you're going to have like no hormones. So they're going to be very low. So we don't test it. If you're not ovulating anymore and you're not sure, look at the last one that you had and go halfway between that, and then just do it a few days after that. So let's say your cycle's last one was 21 days apart. You go halfway between that, and maybe you'll do it around day 17. And that's when you go give either blood or you do the Dutch test. Okay. The other thing to do is when you have symptoms, if you're really anxious, or if you get breast tenderness, or you get headaches, or you get all of a sudden really tired during the month, that's a great time to do the blood test then too, to see if hormones are off at that time. So typically I say don't check your hormones when you're feeling fantastic. So me, after my period is like my peak. I work really well, I have tons of energy, I'm at the gym, I'm super happy and joyful and a little bunny. So that's because I have so much estrogen and everything's so balanced, right? But it could be after ovulation that things can go downhill for me and a lot of my patients. So that's when you want to test it. I'm going to get to all your questions in a second. So let me just quickly go through this. What about blood tests? Where do I get blood tests done if my doctor's not willing to do all the tests? Do not stress about this. I'm a Kaiser patient right now, and I have now seen that how frustrating it can be as a patient, because I'm a doctor asking a doctor to test my thyroid, you know, and all I get is a TSH. And no matter what I say, no matter how much evidence I provide, they just have rules, right? And so we don't want to get caught in the energy of that, because nothing good is going to come from that. But that's why I reached out to Paloma Labs and I said, you know, can I get the thyroid kit at a discount so that you guys can afford to do that? That's the complete thyroid. It gets sent to your house. You can do that. It's really worth it. But Ulta Labs, if you put in my link, you also get a reduced cost there. So you can go and directly choose the labs that you want based on what you should test, based on the quiz. And the quiz, you're not going to get the results. You're just going to see, wow, I have all these symptoms, or none of these symptoms pertain to me, you know, and so I probably don't have an estrogen issue, or I probably don't have a DHEA issue, because none of those symptoms are resonating with me. So then you go and you order the labs, and you take that sheet of paper that you print out at the end, you go to your nearest labs, they'll have all the locations on the site for you. And then literally the next day you get your results. So there's no doctor in between. It's very, very, for time purposes, it's amazing. And sometimes I say, you've got to spend money on your health. This is your wealth. And it's important to know. So many people, we find out things that they had no idea they had. So it's good to know what you have and not to stress about it. But then once you've done it once and it's thorough, after this course, you're going to have all the thoroughness done. Then you can kind of go, okay, at least I've done all the tests and I know that I don't need to repeat this one because it was normal. And it's unlikely that this is going to change in the next 5 years. All right. So I talked about the quiz. I deliberately did not want to send out emails to you. So, you know, I know Nick and everyone's already sending you guys emails. So I kept that separate, and I'm providing the questions on there. And many of you are going to have cortisol come up because there's one thing on there that absolutely resonates with all of us. We've all had stress. But you're not going to get an email. Just look at it, watch the videos, and you will see I go through it and I say, you know, this is cortisol, this is estrogen, this is testosterone. Okay, so Facebook, if you're confused, you're new, please watch the welcome video and then the course citation navigation video. So this handout is there for you with all the main questions we're getting. And then because I'm seeing many of you handwriting your lab results and posting pages and sending me PDFs and Google Docs, and I don't like clicking on them because my computer downloads them as soon as I see them. And I think for HIPAA purposes, you're not my patient, so I don't want to have your data on my computer. And when I do view it, I have to go back and delete it. And it can be not the best for a doctor because I don't want to lose my license. So please don't send me PDF like Google Docs or anything like that. But what I have created for you guys is this document. So I'm going to have Nick send these out to you guys, and Jason will post this in the Facebook group soon. So you'll see here, all you have to do is fill in the blanks. Now you're going to fill in the TSH, the free T4, the free T3 for thyroid. And don't worry if you didn't get iodine tested, because your doctor probably is going to say you don't need iodine tested, you don't need Hashimoto's tested, but anything that you have thyroid related, you write it in here. And then oxidative stress. So these are the antioxidants in the body, right? So this is assessing how much free radical damage have you had and how much oxidation has occurred and how much glutathione do you have to help combat that. This is why we say eat blueberries. This is why we say eat antioxidant rich foods. Well, we can actually measure your status. And one of the best measurements comes actually from the Dutch test. It's the fourth one here. It's called Dutch Oxidative Stress DNA Damage, the 8OHDG. So you'll see that on your Dutch test when you get your results, and it'll be either high or too low. So just write that down here. Don't worry about blood glutathione or blood CoQ10 or blood, these blood values. Not every doctor is going to test that, and you don't have to get that. It's just good to know, like, do I need to take CoQ10? CoQ10 I give to my kids. I take it every day. It's an enzyme that helps oxygenate the cells of the mitochondria of the heart. So we use it a lot in heart disease prevention, but everybody needs it. And so, you know, it's nice to kind of see where you're at. The Boston Heart Test, which is a heart test, not necessarily for hormones. If you have high cholesterol, I highly recommend finding a doctor who is doing Boston Heart. I'll show you, you get basically, let me cover the patient's name. You basically get a booklet like this with diagrams and all your lab results in there, and it will tell you your CoQ10 level. So it will tell you if you need to take CoQ10, if it's low or optimal. But the nice thing is it also tells you why your cholesterol is high. So on the first page, it'll say, are you making too much cholesterol? And remember, cholesterol is the mother of all hormones. All our hormones come from cholesterol. When we go through andropause and menopause, what happens is all our cholesterol goes up because it no longer needs to convert to progesterone, pregnenolone, and all the sex hormones, because we're done having babies. So the brain goes, don't convert them to progesterone and pregnenolone and testosterone and all the hormones. And what it does is it backs up because it has nothing to convert to. So it goes high. Blood pressure can go high for many different reasons with lack of hormones as well. So the Boston Heart, I'm just going to show you, it looks like this. So this person has a lot of red. Red means it's high and they're at high risk. And one of my favorite parts of this test is this little area here. So you can see it says production marker, absorption marker, and you probably can't see that very well. But production marker means this person is making too much cholesterol. And what organ is that? What organ is responsible for that? The liver. So helping the liver, cleansing the liver, making sure the liver is doing well, functioning well, will help that. But a statin medication or red rice yeast extract is what is needed to block the enzyme that makes too much cholesterol. But what if they don't have that problem, but they're probably recommended to take a statin? Well, a lot of people have absorption issues. That means they're recycling their cholesterol in their gut. They're not pooping it out. So they actually don't need a statin. They need more fiber. They need even a medication called Zetia, which acts like a fiber. So I love this test because everyone basically is thrown a statin for cholesterol. It's like candy, but they may not need a statin. They may actually have an absorption issue. They might be constipated. And so of course that'll show here, their absorption will be very high. So back to the oxidative stress, coenzyme Q10 is something that you can get tested. It's not essential for hormones, but it's a bonus that you get when you're doing the Dutch test. So I like it. Gut health, many of you ask me, like, I have digestive issues, and one of my favorite tests is the GI effects by Genova. So that's a stool test that you just do one day. You can do a 3-day. They're pretty much the same price. And it will give you calprotectin, which is an inflammatory marker in bowel diseases that are like ulcerative colitis. And it'll show you if you have any infections, if you have any parasites. It'll tell you if you're inflamed. It'll tell you if you have undigested protein or fats, which should not be coming out in the stool. It should be all absorbed. It'll tell you your bacterial, do you have too much of one or not enough of one? It looks at yeast. So I really like the GI effects to do it at least once in your life, just to see what is in my gut. Because we know gut health is crucial. It's a foundation. It all starts there. So if you're really tired and you have like Blastocystis hominis or a parasite that's going to basically deplete you of all the nutrients you're eating and take away that, then it's good to know and just rule that out. But again, you don't have to do this unless you really have gut issues, okay? Many of you have asked me about SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So SIBO is a symptom. It's not this big thing that we've made it out to be in the last 2 or 3 years. And basically the most important thing is that you have enough stomach acid and you're acidic when you're eating, and your bile is coming out from your gallbladder. And so that acidity and alkalinity helps the bacteria not grow in the small intestine. So I'll leave it there. But the SIBO test, which most of you are familiar with, is a breath test. You don't have to do that for this course. Okay, the most important are sex hormones. That's what most of us are here for. Sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. So many of you have asked, like, when do I take it? We just went through that. Metabolized cortisol and total free cortisol. So this is on the Dutch test, and I'm going to show you how to interpret that in a second. It's good to know how much fat you have, how much visceral fat you have versus body fat. So visceral fat is that fat around your organs. It's kind of the belly fat, we say, right? This is what causes disease and heart disease, and it's even more important than your cholesterol level. So if you have a lot of fat around your liver, around your kidneys, around these vital organs, we want to lose that. That's why we always do a waist to hip ratio, but there are machines that can measure this, right? So we have one at our center, but many gyms have these, and you can get that measured and see where your visceral fat is. So I don't really care about your weight and your BMI, but what I do care about is visceral fat, and making sure for your age and for your height and for your weight, it's age appropriate and it's low. All right, so adrenal stress hormones. You can just get blood cortisol in the morning. Sometimes that's enough. And if it's high or around 20, 23, 22 in the US labs, that means you're waking up stress. That means your brain is telling your body to make way too much stress hormone. If you're waking up and you're getting to the lab at 9 a.m. and your level is at like a 7, that means you're fatigued, you're done, you're burnt out, and your brain's like, please make her go back to bed and be tired, and you're probably craving coffee and needing something to get going. But the cortisol curve is very important, which I'll show you guys in a second on the Dutch. Heavy metals, if you have amalgams in your teeth or you love tuna and sushi, you absolutely have to get your mercury tested because it is in you. Most of us get our mercury from our moms. Lead, arsenic, which is in rice, cadmium, which can be in soybeans and chicken. These are nice to test. You can test it through blood, through Quest or LabCorp, but just know that often they're not going to come back because they're not floating around in your blood. They get bound. Minerals get bound in the body and then put in the lymph. Many go into the brain. They go in your knees. They go places, right? So you want to be careful if you're taking like alpha lipoic acid or anything that helps move these around, that you're doing it correctly. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. But the Quicksilver Labs test is one of the best for mercury. This is like Tony Robbins, if you've been to any of his events when he had mercury poisoning, this is the test he used and used their method to chelate mercury out. His levels were so high that they thought his wife was trying to poison him and like went to his house, the cops, to see what she was trying to do. But he was a pescatarian and had fish all the time. So that's why his mercury levels were so high and he was forgetting his lines at his events. So that was neat to hear that he was using the same test I was. So that's the Tri-Mercury test. It's a hair test, a blood test, and a urine test. It's checking 3 different kinds of mercury. There's organic, inorganic, and methylated mercury. The toxic core effects. This is the Genova one. I love this for environmental toxicity. So this test, I'll show you a patient of mine who, for example, let me just cover her name. Looks like this. So this will show if she has elevated volatile solvents, chlorinated pesticides, or organophosphates, BPA, right? We've heard of BPA plastic-free, phthalates, parabens, all these things in our environment, in boxes, in cans, in plastic containers, styrofoam. A really good documentary on this is called Overload. If you haven't watched it on Amazon Prime, watch it tonight, Overload. And they actually use the same test. So she's looking at all the stuff and finds that she's so toxic, and it's really cool. Again, all these shows are using our tests, but that's a really good test to do if you feel like, I've done everything, but there's just something missing. Well, you might have a lot of these toxins that are in your environment, or if you were exposed to as a child. Some of these, their half-life is 8 to 10 years. They stay in the body. And it's just good to know, because if you, like this person didn't have anything. So it's nice to know her neurological symptoms. She has Alzheimer's in the family. She was very worried, and I want to make sure toxins affect your brain health. I wanted to make sure that that was very low, and we can tick it off and say, okay, we don't have to worry about that. Because toxins, hormonally, they block the receptors. They don't let your body do its job properly. So they can be the root cause of disease. Mercury can be the root cause of the hormonal imbalances. Okay, CBC. So these are things that most of your doctors have checked for, like your complete blood count, vitamin D, B12, ferritin, which is your stored iron, zinc inside the cell, copper, selenium, magnesium. Some of your doctors might not do all these tests because they might not think it's medically necessary, okay? So that's fine, but at least get your vitamin D, B12, and iron. Those are essential. You have to all have a vitamin D, a B12, and a ferritin. And then obviously your blood sugar. If you have a pre-diabetes in the family, get fasting insulin tested. That is crucial. They found that before someone becomes diabetic, pre-diabetic, glucose goes up. 10 years before fasting, insulin is up. But that never gets tested. So you go fasting and you're looking at insulin. Lipid panel, obviously, and then just looking at your cycles for the females, if they're still cycling, making sure that this is there, right? So looking at that, saying yes, no. And then for next time, just fill this in if you haven't already, and then just write what needs attention based on these, what is suboptimal, and then what is optimal for me. And then at the end, any questions you have for the next Facebook Live, fill this in so that you remember and we can go from there. Okay, let me share with you the Dutch test quickly. I'm just going to go through some labs and then I'll take your questions. So this patient, estrogen, I'm going to teach you how to read this. That all you really need is the first page. Do not read every other page in very nitty gritty. If it says low end, high end, don't worry about that. For those of you not doing the Dutch test, don't worry about it, but it's cool to just follow along and see what's the hype. Why are we doing this test? So estrogen here is, you see that little yellow star to the next yellow star? So that's the normal range for someone who is having periods here. Here's your little legend to follow. Between the purple and the yellow star is that perimenopausal range, and then that purple range is the postmenopausal range. So this is a 30-something-year-old. She's still menstruating every month. So she did this around day 19 to 21 of her cycle, when we still should have a little bit of estrogen, but we should have more progesterone than estrogen. And look at that. So her progesterone is nice and high, on the high end of normal. Her estrogen is beautiful. Her testosterone is beautiful. So her hormones look okay. But remember what I said with the hierarchy, the most important thing to have okay is a really nice cortisol curve. And you want to look at your 24-hour free cortisol and then your metabolized cortisol. Okay, so the most important thing you're going to look at is those top 3 hormones and then your curve. And this is her curve. So this is the red here is her. This is the high end of normal and then the low end of normal. And we want like a nice big curve here in between those 2 lines. This is what we have here and what we call a flat-lined curve. They've compared this to smoking a pack a day. So this means that her brain has no circadian rhythm. She's lost the rhythm that comes in life, the ups and the downs, the morning sunrise, waking you up and blue light, and then the red sunset, relaxing at night. You can see someone like this, we call also adrenal exhaustion. It means that she's just tired. So without even knowing her history, you would assume her main complaint is going to be that she is fatigued. She's tired. I've been here after having my second son. I was just shocked to see that my adrenals were tanked. And all I craved was that morning coffee. Like I literally, well, I was waking up a lot during the night, but still I would just be like, oh, when is it morning? When can I like go make the coffee? Because coffee makes the cortisol that you have stick around longer, and it squeezes out a little bit. It's a stimulant, right? It puts that adrenaline out so that your body goes into more stimulation. So in her here, between the yellow and yellow is where you want to be. And you want to look at the range, right? Don't be too picky. But if you're like at 66 and the cutoff is 65, that means you don't have a lot of cortisol in a whole day. And what does that mean? It means you're going to be tired. Cortisol is your stimulating hormone. It's the one that says how much energy you have. It's your stress hormone. So she has 40. She's really, really low. And then metabolized is how much the body makes. So what I love about the Dutch test is right here. Metabolized is also a function of your metabolism, which is thyroid and the liver. So when I see someone's metabolized cortisol low, I absolutely want to check a complete thyroid panel. And when we did that, we saw her TSH was high and she was hypothyroid. And so we have to fix this before we just treat thyroid, because her endocrinologist, let's say, might just say her TSH is high, let's put her on thyroid. But if I don't fix this first, that extra little thyroid boosting will just burn up that little bit of 40 that she has. And guess what? She's not going to feel better. Those patients will come to me, and I've seen this for so many years. They go on thyroid, they feel great for 2 weeks, and then they go back to the way they were. And then their thyroid medication gets upped. They feel great for 2 weeks, and then they tank again. And some of them are like up to 100 milligrams or micrograms, depending on what they're on, and they never needed to go up, but no one ever addressed their adrenal. So this is the Dutch adrenal. If you're just doing the adrenal test, this is all you see, and that's all I want you to pay attention to. When I wake up, this is perfect. In the morning, it should be the highest for the day. You don't want it to be too high, but you also don't want it to be like this. There is no difference in her brain between afternoon, night, morning, waking. The brain thinks all day is pretty much nighttime. It wants her to sleep all day, right? So this is also not good for fertility because the brain is perceiving stress. A really good TED talk on this is by a health psychologist called Kelly that I think it's titled Becoming Friends with Stress, where they show it's the perception of stress that's important. So if you perceive stress to be bad for you, then it is going to be bad for you. So let's look at our body when it's having a stressful time or a stressful response and honor the courage it has to tell us something that's wrong, instead of thinking, oh, I'm so stressed, this is not good for my hormones, this is going to kill me, it's led to heart disease. So that belief is our fault. Doctors are the ones that have told everyone for years, demonizing stress and saying that stress is so bad for you. That's not true. Now we're finding that if you believe it's bad for you, it vasoconstricts the heart. But if you don't believe, they found it doesn't have that reaction, which is fascinating. Okay, I want to show you a couple more Dutch tests that are the opposite of this. Last year when I tested mine, this is how it was. So you can go from that, it can change, and I'm going to go through in different modules what you need to do, what supplements you need, what lifestyle changes, what diets you need to fix this, okay? This is not the week, we're not there yet. So just hold on, get an understanding, and maybe even read some books. There's a really good book called The Adrenal Reset Diet by Dr. Alan Christensen. If you have this, you can just pick that book up just to become familiar about the adrenals. But this one, if you look here, her red is super high. So you can see here, her morning cortisol is extremely high, and her metabolized and 24-hour are on the high end, so the opposite of this. So she had a death in the family, and her story makes sense that she's just still in that acute stress. So acutely, when we are stressed, it goes high. Then what can happen is it can reverse. It can be low in the day and high at night. And then this pattern that you're seeing right now with the flat line is from chronic stress. So eventually the brain goes, okay, we can't keep depleting ourselves and just give. So what it does is it just tells the adrenals, do not work, do not release cortisol. So there's nothing wrong with her adrenals. So let me clear this up. This person doesn't have adrenal fatigue. There is no adrenal fatigue. The adrenals do not get fatigued. The brain tells it to not release cortisol. So you got to work up here and go, why is my brain thinking it shouldn't do this, right? And there's a reason. You have to understand, and most people know. One last one. This is a perimenopausal woman, and look at her. So this is the reverse one that I have. So this patient in the afternoon, it is spiking. So she has insomnia. She's very anxious when it comes to nighttime and loves her glass of wine or a vodka or something to relax her. So she works, and then when she gets home, she has that loneliness. She's an emotional eater, and so she gets stressed. That's when she feels her stress. So you can see that spike in cortisol. And you can also see here her estrogen is very low. So she is in the perimenopausal range, still has her progesterone. So she was having some hot flashes and night sweats. And we are helping her with herbs because she didn't want to take hormones, which I'm fine with. Okay, so a few more tests. Let me just go through lab values. Oh, sorry, one other test I want to show you. This is the Dutch Plus. Some of you have done the Dutch Plus to really check your stress. The difference with this is it is looking at morning, 30 minutes after waking up, 60 minutes after waking up, and then afternoon, night. So you can see here, this one, when she wakes up, she's great. And then 30 minutes after waking, it goes up really high, and then it stays higher than normal after an hour. That's called the cortisol awakening response. They found that what your brain does in the first hour of waking is way more important than what it does for the rest of the day. So if you're waking up and it shoots up too quickly, that means it's perceiving that it's going to be a pretty stressful day. So that's a little bit more advanced. You don't have to do that. Just this complete is fine. But sometimes my patients want to do a bit more and understand, like, am I waking up? You know, I'm feeling relaxed. I'm a little tired. I'm anxious when I wake up. So we might do that one instead to see what the awakening response is. But you don't have to do that one. You can just do the Dutch complete. That'll tell you, you'll see that curve in the morning. So that's a saliva test that you do. All right, so blood work. Let me quickly go through the normal values and what I'm looking for. If you're sending me your labs, this is how my brain works. So now you're going to become that doctor and know what I'm looking for. So with your thyroid, your TSH, this is for US values. If you're in the UK, if you're anywhere in the world, in Europe, look at the normal range. You want to be in the top third typically. Except for TSH, you want it to be at the low end. You don't want it to be at the high end. If it's high, that means you're hypothyroid. So in the US, we typically like TSH to be 1.5 to 2.5, okay? That's just your brain and how much your brain thinks you have. Then you have to look at free T4. Remember, that's what your actual thyroid hormone produces. So I have people that have a sweet spot, like 1.2 or 1 or 1.1. Those are nice values where they feel good. They feel hair is good, energy is good, bowel movements are good, skin is good. And if sometimes it gets too high, we get anxious, right? That means your metabolism is going up. That means you're telling your cells to function faster than maybe it can catch up. Free T3, this is where not everyone gets this tested, and that's unfortunate. This is the most important number to have because free T4 is inactive. Remember, it's useless for the cells, but free T3 is what gets in. And so you want this number to be above 3 typically, right? If it's 2.8 and you feel fine, that's okay. We don't, again, want to be too nitty gritty with all these numbers. But you don't want it to be like right at the bottom of the range and then have high T4. That means it's not converting, right? So you might then have to check your selenium and zinc because those are two things that help that conversion. You might want to look at foods, and I'll go through this in the next modules. TPO is your antibody to thyroid. So if you've never had this tested and you have thyroid issues, you might have Hashimoto's, and we need to know. So if you've had this tested once and it was negative, do not test it again. It probably is fine. If you are pregnant and you've had a baby recently, you want to check this because most Hashimoto's starts after giving birth. Reverse T3, if you have thyroid issues or your T3 is low or your numbers look great, but you feel hypothyroid because of quiz, you had a lot of thyroid symptoms, you got to check reverse T3. Reverse T3 is the opposite of T3. Remember, it blocks everything. You don't want this number to be high, like around 19, 20, 21. That's too high. That means it's not letting the thyroid do its job. Iodine, everybody's low. Everyone I test, I've just stopped testing it, but it's good to just get a number in the serum. Don't do a urine test or a skin test. Those aren't as accurate. Just check your serum, and if it's like 35, you probably need some iodine or you need to eat more seaweed and get some sea vegetables in you. Okay, what else? Glucose, the range is 65 to 99, but I prefer 70 to 80 fasting. Creatinine is a function of your kidney. So you don't worry if it's low, we worry if it's high, okay? GFR is a function of your kidneys. Again, the glomerular filtration rate in a non-African American, if you're in the hundreds, that's amazing. That means your kidney function is really good. But if you're at 60, we got to watch out and make sure we're protecting your kidneys. That's the cutoff for like stage 3 kidney failure. A lot of my patients are right at 60. And I go, what are they taking? Are they on meds that's hurting the kidneys? Or do they have toxins in their environment that's hurting the kidneys? So look at GFR, you want to be above 60. Even above 80 would be better. 60 is not fantastic. Look at sodium and potassium. Are they at the low end of normal? Potassium is important for muscle strength. So if your potassium is at the low end and you have weakness, or you just feel tired and your muscles feel weak, you can't, you're not strong like you used to be, then it might be that you need to add electrolytes and you're low in potassium. Calcium in the blood is not the same as if you need to take calcium. That's regulated by your parathyroid, right? So calcium, you don't want to be right at the high end of normal. So if you're at 10.2, which typically most labs, that's the cutoff, and you're at 10.1, watch out and make sure that you're looking at your thyroid and maybe getting your parathyroid tested. Okay, what else? Hopefully this is useful. I'm basically teaching you guys how to be doctors. I know there's so many questions. Okay, liver enzymes, super important with hormones. So I like liver enzymes in the teens. So AST and ALT, those are two that are in this CMP14, the complete metabolic panel, which everybody tests. So once a year, all doctors do this test. So you should all have an AST and an ALT. If you drink alcohol, they might be high. If you're on medications that's hard on the liver, like a statin, they might be high. But if they're in the 20s, there's research showing that you may be predisposing yourself to fatty liver disease in 10 years. So many of us have 20s. I had it in the 20s and I was like, okay, I really got to cut out the alcohol. I really have to watch and help my liver out last year. And now they're in the teens again. So you want to make sure you're protecting the liver. If the liver enzymes are high, talk to your doctor, find out why. But I, for my patients, usually prescribe silymarin, which is milk thistle extract. There's research that will help protect the good cells so they don't get damaged, okay? So this patient here, her AST is 32 and her ALT was 21. So I did a liver ultrasound and found that she has fatty liver disease. Her iodine here, you can see, is 33, so that was low. What else? CBC is just your, blood count for white blood cells, red blood cells. They are not as important for hormones, but obviously if you're anemic and your hemoglobin is very low or your red blood cells are really high, you got to talk to your doctor and, don't use Google, but just ask, what does this mean? Because it's not supposed to be that way. If your white blood cell count is chronically low, that might mean that you have had mono or Epstein-Barr virus or a virus that's constantly depleting your immune system. And that's why it's your normal low now. But there's a bone marrow supplement that I use from Chinese medicine to help bring white blood cell counts up. We use this in chemotherapy patients who become very low because all their cells die. Ferritin, remember, you want it around 50, 60, 70. That's stored iron. Many of my men will have very high ferritin. Obviously, they don't bleed, they don't have menstrual cycles, but fatty liver disease can make your ferritin extra high. So if someone has very high ferritin, I look at the liver, I'll do an ultrasound and make sure it's not fatty. Prolactin is another female hormone that we obviously secrete when we're breastfeeding, but some people will have it high when they're not pregnant, they're not breastfeeding, and that might mean that they have a pituitary issue. So if you're thinking of having a baby and there's issues, you definitely want to get your prolactin checked. Vitamin B12, I like it over 900 in the American population, right at the high end. Even if it's higher than the normal of high, that's not bad. It's water soluble and then it gets into the brain where we want it to be. Okay, I think I'm almost done. Vitamin D, I like it from 60 to 80 in the US. If you are osteopenic or osteoporotic, you want to make sure you're not just taking calcium, because that's going to go straight to the arteries of your heart and stiffen them and create heart disease. You want to make sure your calcium to magnesium ratio is either 1:1 or 2:1 from calcium to magnesium. So Integrative Therapeutics has a liquid calcium magnesium, that's good, but just look at what you're taking and make sure it's not like all calcium and a tiny bit of magnesium. Vitamin D, K, and magnesium are the top 3 you have to fix first before anyone's allowed to take calcium. Otherwise, that calcium is going to go in the wrong place. And try to have more sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are very high in calcium. All right, I am done. Whew. Okay, that's a lot of talking. And of course, guess what, guys? It's my birthday today. So this is how I'm spending my morning. And I'm so happy to be helping you guys. And this just fills my heart up. So I have this fluorescent light in front of me. So I'm going to wear my blue blocking glasses. Sorry if it reflects. Otherwise, I will get a headache. Okay, I'm going to answer Manya live. Hopefully I said that okay. I'm 49 years old, and on day 23, I did my blood test for the hormones, and these are the results. Okay, so hopefully you already learned what this means, but let me go through this one so you guys can all see. So if you're in the perimenopausal range, 49, getting close to menopause, her progesterone is 1.9, that's fine. Usually I find they're low. So if you are wanting to have a baby, day 19, 21, progesterone should be over 10, minimum 10. That means you got good eggs. If you are a male figure, you do not even need progesterone tested. And if you are perimenopausal, 1.9 is okay. But look at this, guys. Her estradiol, sorry, I'm picking on you, but this is so common. Estradiol is 610. That does, a 21-year-old doesn't have an estrogen that high, right? So you have way too much estrogen to progesterone. You must have sore breasts. I don't even know your symptoms. Oh, here, DHEA 255. I have lots of PMS, yes, and fibrocystic breasts, of course, because that estrogen is creating cysts, right? And it is stimulating the breast tissue. So that is what we have to fix. This is called relative estrogen dominance. I have 2 articles on the Chalkboard magazine. If you guys just Google Chalkboard magazine, Dr. Afrouz Demiri, or just my name, you will see I talk about all of this. We gain weight, we have weight issues, we are super bitchy. I'm talking about myself. We're just different people before our period because we are so dominant in a hormone that needs to be low, right? So what steps should I take? Read the article, you'll learn, but one of my favorites is to do the seed cycling, which I'm gonna go through in the modules. But this week, all I want you to understand is that you are estrogen dominant. You need to poop out more estrogen, sweat out that estrogen, help your liver break down that estrogen, and you absolutely have to do the Dutch test to see, because when you have that much estrogen, God forbid you're making a lot of bad estrogen, then you can predispose yourself to breast cancer, ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer. So you want to make sure, not out of fear, but you want to see where are my risks, because that's very high estrogen. It's very youthful, so that part is good, but you don't want to have that much estrogen ever at any age, especially 49. So would you recommend doing ultrasound versus mammogram? So I always recommend 1 mammogram. You have to have at least 1 mammogram in your life. Then you go from there. You say, did that mammogram show I have dense breasts? I bet you have dense breasts, which means you also need iodine. Iodine deficiency causes dense breasts, and so does so much estrogen and toxins. If you have dense breasts, mammograms are not going to be very good at picking anything up anyways, but it's good to do that once at least. Then after that, I always do breast exams on my patients, and if I find cysts, I'll order an ultrasound because we know radiation causes cancer. So if someone already like you is all this estrogen on the breast and I irradiate you every single year, guess what? You get cancer. How do I know I didn't actually contribute to you getting cancer? So thank you for your question. That was very, very hopefully helpful for everybody. Maya, are the adrenal and cortisol tests the same? Yes, but there are more than cortisol that's released by the adrenals. So the adrenals also release DHEA, okay, which is called the youth hormone. Does any of those tests have to be done on certain days of the cycle? Yes, so please read everything that we've given you. We've told you what to do for hormones, but for stress, for adrenals, no, you can do that test any time of the month. Or any time in your life. However, pick a typical day, you know, like don't pick a day where you get into a car accident, God forbid, or if you're on holiday, you know, and you're going to Hawaii and you're not doing anything. So just pick a typical day and see what your adrenals are functioning. I always say pick a work day for most of us if they're working. Okay, so flora. It would be great to know which ones to test for sure. Could this doc mark the essential markers we should check? Yes, so the essentials are the quiz. Cortisol, DHEA, insulin, thyroid, your sex hormones. And then obviously vitamin D and B12 and ferritin I've thrown in. They're not hormones per se, but they affect your overall well-being. So those are the essentials. The essentials I went through in week 1. Make sure you get just those essentials. So if I can show you the screen again, you want to get the thyroid, and everything on there is essential to do at least once. And sex hormones, you want to get, if you're female, which you are, estrogen, progesterone, free testosterone, sex hormone, blinding globulin, and then cortisol. Okay, so those are all essential, is just getting the hormones tested. That's why we're doing this course. What is andropause? So Mia, this is a female asking. Andropause is the male version of menopause. Can you please repeat the name of the environmental toxins test? Yes, it's the Genova Toxic Core. So I have it right here. Sorry, it's called the Toxic, oh, can you see it there? Toxic Effects Core. And you'll see it in the Overload Amazon documentary. I've heard parasites hold on to heavy metals and that it can be dangerous to remove heavy metals before you address parasites. What are her thoughts on that? Also, I think I have histamine issues, and many of the foods she recommends, beets, spinach, yes, are high. And I do mention that if you do have a histamine issue, not to have those. Does she have recommendations for alternatives? I get a link from Sacred Science on histamine lower foods, but it doesn't say what foods are good for the liver detox. So basically you probably have an app. I have a few apps on my phone that tell you which foods are high in histamine, which foods are high in oxalates, which foods are high in salicylic, sulfur. So look at those and then have another green, have another purple colored food like beets, So see, just based on knowing that you have an histamine issue, and then take tons of vitamin C so that you can beat this histamine issue, right? So don't get stuck in, I have a histamine issue for life. See what that's about. How do I get over having a histamine issue? And vitamin C is a mast cell stabilizer, right? So taking like to bowel tolerance vitamin C every day can be very helpful. In regards to parasites and heavy metals, there's not enough research on that. So whoever told you that, I don't think it's based on research. However, they may have more experience seeing that in their practice, hopefully, and they're not just saying that. But I do a lot of heavy metal testing, and I myself have had parasites and gotten rid of them. And I can tell you that they don't hold on to the heavy metals. They hold on to food. They take nutrients. Parasites have a symbiotic relationship with their host. And there's nothing healthy about mercury that's going to help them live. So if you were a parasite, you probably would not want to take arsenic and cadmium and lead in. Again, that's based on what I've seen. But getting rid of the heavy metals is essential, is way more important sometimes than the parasites. But it's good to know what kind of parasites that you have. Okay. Does she do testing for mold, which affect hormones? No, mold affects everything, but mold has been around all our life. Mold has got a lot of attention recently, survivingmold.com, Dr. Shoemaker. I've done all his training. I was exposed to mold. However, just remember, mold has always been around. It's in the Bible. It does absolutely affect the receptor. So in some patients, I'll first do the genetic test for mold. So 1 out of 4 females is predisposed to that. If that comes back positive, I'll do the visual test online on survivingmold.com. You can all do that if you think you have a mold issue. It's like $10, $15. And if you fail that test, then we do the advanced mold testing. And the best treatment for that is cholestyramine, which is what used to be used and given to lower cholesterol, which binds cholesterol. So you want to take binders and sauna and sweat it out. But many people, once the mold is removed, they're fine, you know, but they think that the mold is in them and it's actually really contributing to it, and it's not. So hopefully that's helpful, Megan. What is the powder she showed in her video? It was never stated. She only showed back of the label, so I couldn't see the name. I'm not on Facebook and was told the QRIs were going to be posted on her site, but haven't seen anything yet. Are these going to be posted on my site? I don't know what you mean by that, on my website, but the powders I've used, yes, you're right. So I've answered this question in the Facebook group, but you guys are all going to get a list emailed to you by Sacred Sciences, by Nick and his team. The reason we haven't told you all these things yet is because I don't want everyone going out there and buying everything. I've told you guys, you all get 25% off all professional supplements through my dispensary, through Fullscript. So you guys will have access to that soon when I start talking about supplements, because I don't want people buying things and then going, oh shoot, I hadn't watched this video. That's not what I was supposed to get. I was supposed to get this one. But the powder I use is for detoxing. So I do usually once every day or once every other day throw in a shake or a smoothie or just in a glass of water, take some things, because I'm not huge on taking tons of pills. Unfortunately, I just don't like taking a lot of pills. So the one I was taking was the, I have like 4 or 5 different ones I go through, but Zymogen has a product, a powdered product that's for detoxification. That one I don't believe is on Fullscript. And Ultra Clear Plus is another one by Metagenics. That's the one I was using that you guys saw. I love that one. It has basically anything for liver detox, gut detox. It's like all in one. So it's like, imagine having 5 different supplements and you just open all of them. And it has protein, it has my multi, it has minerals, it has everything. So sometimes I just take that and that's it. Plus maybe some fish oils and a probiotic. But you will have access to that in the video. So you're going to see all that in the modules where I actually go through supplements, and you will have access to Fullscript. So don't go in there right now because you guys probably don't have your discount given to you. We will send you all that information soon once we get to the supplement module. But you do get 25% off everything. Okay. Once we get the test results, who views them and gives us the interpretation she's referencing? You do, because I just went through all of it with you. So I'm guessing this, yeah, this was posted earlier. So you do, but I can also help you if you need help. Thank you for this chart and sharing the values. Possibly send this values chart so that we can see everything you just said. Happy birthday. Yeah, thank you. Sure, I will try my best to do that. I was on birth control over 30 years without a break. So that already tells me you have a liver issue and a gallbladder issue. So increased risk of gallstones over 10 years by 60%. I went off last August and FSH showed I was in menopause. Of course, I mean, for 30 years, you shut down that pathway. So it's really hard for the body to kind of remember what to do after you come off. This is called post-pill amenorrhea, but I don't know how old you are, anonymous attendee. I just got my period 3 weeks ago. Okay, cool. What is the best way to get my system back to normal? What do I test since everything is very irregular now? There's a really good product, which I will go through in the module, called Fem Rebalance by Vitanica, which you can get through my Fullscript for discount. But I love that one when anyone comes off birth control pill, because it helps rebalance the hormones quickly so you don't get symptoms and hot flashes and acne and all kinds of nasty side effects. But hold off till your next period and then do the testing. It's a little too soon to do testing right now, but if you got your period and it was a full-blown period, wait to see if you get it again in 4 weeks. If you don't, then go test it at that 4 weeks to see what's going on. What about thyroid peroxidase antibodies? Okay, so that's TPO for Hashimoto's, right, for everyone. My Ulta lab test showed 194. I do have Hashimoto's and need to find my old labs to compare. Yes, 194 is high, but it's not, I usually say less than 300 means you're kind of going into remission. It's not actively attacking your thyroid, but it's good to compare your last one and also check your iodine and do a thyroid ultrasound to make sure to see if you have nodules. Is bad estrogen from foods too, like soy and garlic? No. Bad estrogen is from xenoestrogens that mimic estrogen, that are like pretending to be estrogens. They're not really estrogen. But bad estrogen also is what your body converts it into from yourself. So that's done by the liver. So there's genes that will convert that pathway into what you'll see on the Dutch test. There's a graph that has the green, and it also has the red and the blue on there. Once you get the Dutch test, you'll see the bad estrogens, but they don't come from phytoestrogens like soy and phytoestrogens that are in plants and herbs. That's all a myth. Another myth I see on Facebook that everyone says is I have hypothyroidism and I can't have cruciferous vegetables. No, guys, this is a myth. It's not true. You are never going to eat enough broccoli and cabbage to screw your thyroid. I mean, you'd be so gassy. You'd have like to have gallons and just sit there having raw. So it's about raw cruciferous vegetables, which most of us don't eat. If you watch Overload, you'll see she was told to have a lot of cruciferous vegetables, but I don't know if they did it for the video to make it look good, but she literally goes to Trader Joe's and just gets bags of broccoli, and she's just chewing on raw broccoli all day, which obviously gives her diarrhea, but that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to steam and cook your cruciferous vegetables. So please, if you have a thyroid issue, yeah, don't eat raw cruciferous vegetables, but you can absolutely have them. So that is a myth. They're not going to skew your levels. What is the optimal range for iodine? My serum level is 42.7. There is no optimal range, because when you take iodine, your body creates iodine transporters and receptors. It increases it. Just like when you drink coffee for the first time, it's like a drug and you're like shaking. But then the next time you eat it, drink it and drink it and drink it, then, you know, after a year, you're not shaking anymore. That's because your body creates receptors and says, okay, she's going to be drinking coffee every day. We got to do something so we're not shaking all the time. Same with iodine. It's a stimulating mineral, so you will make more. And so I always say you want to be usually over 100, but some people need way more. I stopped testing because I go based on their symptoms. If they have cysts in their ovaries, if they have cysts in their breasts, or they have dense breasts, or they never sweat. So if you do not sweat, you probably are low in iodine, and you need iodine, not just for your thyroid, but for your muscles and your skin. And iodine, the deficiency can cause people to say, I don't sweat like I used to. I've been diagnosed with hyperplasia in the breast. Can this be reversed? Yes, absolutely, it can be. You just have to do the Dutch test and look at your estrogen, but you probably cannot go on estrogen replacement therapy. But you want to help your liver out, you want to help your body detox, and you want to get friendly with your breasts. You want to understand the psychology and the spirituality around breasts and nurturance and love and giving. It's the first food we receive as a child is breast milk. So when there's any harm done to any part of the body, I always look at what is the body trying to tell me? Why is there a tumor or a cyst in this organ for this patient? What is their story? And unfortunately, I can't do that with you, but I would spend an hour getting to know you, and you would probably understand what is the message in this, right? So don't focus on reversing it. Focus on inquiry. Use the word inquiry. I'm curious. I'm like a 6-year-old who asks, why? Why do you have that in your breasts, right? So you're asking just why questions. What is this about? You know, what is my body trying to tell me? You want to be still so that you can actually receive the answer. But often we're so in our head and we're scared and we're worried, and this doctor says do this, and all the power is giving to everyone else, and we are not still. We're not in line with our own truth. So I advise for any of you who have any problems in any organ is to read up, you know, a little bit of Louise Hay, and get a little woo-woo even, and like go out there and go, what is the rest of the world? What is the sacred sciences? You know, what are these ancient wisdom in these organs? What does this organ represent? So if there's an issue with a gallbladder, I always say this is the fat of life, right? Does this person have issues digesting and having fun, digesting fat? Do they just go with the flow and enjoy? Breast, as I said, is nurturance. It's the most female organ that we have. So I look at their yin. Have they got an overcompensated yang personality and having to give, and suppressed emotions and such? So I'm super curious to know how this works. Okay, will you go over in the course what you recommend for very low ferritin? Yes, I do. Obviously, you want to understand why, though, you have low ferritin. So are you bleeding? I don't like people to just take iron if, let's say, they have colon cancer, God forbid, and they're bleeding every day a little bit and they think it's a hemorrhoid, and then their iron is low and they go and take iron, or they're not digesting well and they're not absorbing the iron in their food. So we want to understand why first, and then if absolutely you're just bleeding a lot, you might need progesterone. You have heavy cycles, it's probably because you're low in progesterone. Do you like SpectraCell for testing how much magnesium intracellular? Yes, I do. I use in SpectraCell. I like the NutrEval more. I use SpectraCell for many years, but it is a good lab. I do like NutrEval more, and then Vibrant America also has another one. Had hysterectomy and ovaries removed 13 years ago. Okay, so 67, I'll have osteoporosis. Can I reverse this? Did you have breast cancer or any kind of cancer in the family? After 13, the research shows, and I go through this, you don't benefit from hormone replacement therapy as much to reverse many things. Sometimes it's a bit late, but for bone health, the research shows obviously all the minerals, strontium, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, and K are important, and then resistance training. You have to be lifting, you have to be strengthening the muscles around the hips and biking, and doing that is super important. Yeah, I've seen so many of my patients reverse it. You don't have to go on hormones. There must have been a reason they removed your ovaries. So I can't answer that without really knowing. But I would say look at least testosterone. Testosterone is very important for bone health. It does convert to estrogen. So just ask your doctor if it's safe. I am Flora from Canada. My white blood count was 4, which is on the low end. I'm constantly getting affected with viruses. Can you please repeat how I can increase my white? I mean, I don't know your history. Obviously, I want to make sure for anyone with white blood counts that are low, we always want to rule out cancer and leukemia and such. But getting your EBV, your Epstein-Barr virus, and seeing if you have lots of viruses, then taking bone marrow extract. There's a Chinese medicine formula that we use. So literally bone marrow. How about menopause? Help with low cortisol, low estrogen, and previous breast cancer. Okay, so you can't go on hormones. However, you can take lots of herbs that can help, and I go through that in the supplement section. So just hold on, we will get to how to fix these. This week, all we're doing is figuring out what do I have. Recommendations on how to clear up a fatty liver, please. Oof, that's a long one. Fatty liver has to do with issues with sugar. So it's not about fat. It means that you really have to cut out sugar, carbs, and help your body break up the triglycerides and the sugar that's stuck in the liver. So you can look at things like B5, vitamin B5, L-carnitine. Taking a lot of different supplements is basically one of my favorites. And then exercise, lots of exercise. Exercise can help as well. So it's a sugar problem. I'm 28 years old and I am in postmenopausal range. I wonder why. My Dutch test shows I have very low progesterone and estradiol, and my testosterone levels are also low. Is it possible to increase my hormones? Yeah, so if you're 28 and your ovaries we call it premature ovarian failure, I have to know your history. Often it's because of low weight, and getting you to gain some weight might be a solution. I don't know anything about you, Lena. But the number one thing that pops in my head is there a history of an eating disorder, over-exercise, birth control pill use for a long time, weight, looking at your body fat. So I've had so many women like you, and I've reversed, and they get their period from gaining weight. And it means you're nutriently deficient. Where did you get your blue light blockers? Amazon, $20. Just Googled it. And I love them. They work really well. Thank you. I'm postmenopausal. The largest symptom of all is weight gain that feels out of control. I smell food and can put on 2 pounds. My sleep is good. Very minimal hot flashes, not overly emotional. It's the weight that bothers me most. And where is the weight? If it's more around the belly, then you have to look at cortisol and your gallbladder. Have ordered all the tests but don't have results yet. Any thoughts on this issue alone? I'm sure other women may have the same. Yeah. So I can gain weight like that and just be that way, even though I'm not menopausal. And it's always around hormones and stress. So cortisol will make you gain weight when you eat like a salad. And then having a weak gallbladder also will do the same thing. So the weak gallbladder patients are the skinny legs, but they have the abdominal fat. But it depends. So we have to see, obviously exercise is key and fasting is huge. When you're at this age, you can't eat like you used to, and you have to work more. So it's not going to be like it used to be. It's unfortunate, but hormones can help. Hormone replacement therapy can help. I'm a holistic health practitioner, but in all my studies, hormones have been the most complicating, and I have never found how to read hormone levels for women for all ages. Can you briefly go over menopause? Yes. So when you're looking, I'm just going to go over blood because I'm assuming that's what you want to know. So most women will come in, let's say in their 20s, and they're like, your estrogen is in the hundreds, 100, 200, 300. And then perimenopause, what happens as they're getting kind of cycles are all over the place, they'll have high estrogen 1 month, and then 2 months later they have very low, and then again high and then low. And so you'll see this very big spike. And then eventually when they're done, it'll be around 30. If they're less than 15, which I often see, those patients do not feel good. No one should have levels less than 30. I prefer postmenopause around 60, 70, maybe 80, but around 30 is too low. So hopefully that helps in terms of estrogen, which is the most important. And then you want to make sure the progesterone is around 1 or 2 in comparison when they're postmenopausal. And then free testosterone in blood. Let me see, I have some examples of patients that I have them on hormones. I don't like testosterone high. Those women will start getting acne, losing their hair, and becoming more male-like, and no one feels good with too much testosterone, but it gives them a lot of energy. They build muscle, their bones are strong, and they love it. But typically free testosterone, maybe around 3 or 2. I'm looking at Quest ranges in the US, would be fine. But yeah, a 48-year-old, a 49-year-old usually want at least estrogen over 60 minimum. So hopefully that helps. Brittany, oh yes, that was Brittany. Okay guys, I gotta get going. 37-year-old female, my insulin was 1.7. That's below normal. What does that mean? Fasting glucose was 83. That's okay. Having too low insulin is not an issue. Is that too low? I'll be going with Dutch Plus next week. No, I'm not worried unless you have symptoms, you have issues. So I don't know, Denise, what kind of symptoms do you have? Super chemically sensitive, so that means liver needs lots of support. Have MTHFR, so don't detox well. Yes. Will this go away once I get my hormones in order? No, it's the other way around. Your hormones will get in order when your liver works better and your detox pathways work better. Okay, so it's the other way around, which we're going to do. That's the whole point of this course, is to treat the root cause and not just, I didn't do week 1. Here are the supplements to take. Here's what to replace if you're low, right? That's not going to last long. How long is too low for cholesterol? How low is too low for cholesterol? I'm usually about 120. So I'm guessing you're talking about total cholesterol. Yes, 120 is low. Is there safe to raise it if you already show plaque in the coronary arteries through calcium scan? What I like to do is a carotid ultrasound and see how much blockage, and it's called the CIMT, the carotid intermedial thickness, and looking at the plaque to see what kind of plaque you have. So a calcium score is okay, but it doesn't tell you if it's plaque that's very soft and it's going to move and lodge and cause a stroke, or if it's very hard and stiff and it's not going to move. So get a CIMT. We offer it at our clinic. It's not even expensive cash, you know, but insurance usually covers it if you have coronary artery disease. But cholesterol is always a bystander. So check your homocysteine, do the Boston heart test to see what's going on. But yeah, I don't like too low cholesterol. I'm the other way around. I think cholesterol is so important. If you don't have enough cholesterol, your cells lose their shape and they don't communicate with each other. So yes, that's a great question. How long will the full script discount be valid? That's a very good question. I haven't thought about that. I would love to say for life. So let's leave it there. But I would say at least for a year. I don't want to get involved in that too much because Sacred Sciences is doing that. So I would say at least for a year. Dr. DeMaria, do you recommend bentonite clay for detoxing? Yes. In particular heavy metals. Yes, I love it. My naturopathic doctor recommended me to do this. After removing the copper IUD, should there be any noticeable effects? No, you're not going to feel much by taking charcoal or clay, unless, like I said, you're doing it for a very specific hypothesis and you're like, I got this mercury or I have copper and I'm going to go and get it out. But what symptom do you have that you think is caused by the high copper? And then what's the hypothesis? How are we going to remove it? How do we check that we've actually had it high and now it's gone down? So you got to kind of be a scientist, and that's how I work. I'm always like, how do you know it's working? So that's a really good question. If you don't feel any better after, typically, I always go, that probably means something's missing. Okay, 2 more questions, guys. I have an infrared sauna, but it only gets to 130. What do you think? It's not about the temperature as much. It's the rays and being close to the rays. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. As long as you're sweating and you're getting in there often, that's okay. It's better than not having it. Oh, Flora, I love you. It's Flora again. Since I have osteopenia and arthritis, I avoid black shade. Nightshades, you mean? Vegetables, except tomatoes. I steam them, remove the skin and the seeds. So you're doing sort of the lectin-free diet. Is it okay, or should I avoid tomatoes altogether? No, it's totally okay. Our ancestors had all these things and they were fine. Unfortunately, us doctors, often we want to sell things, we want to have something new, and we come up with, I'm not saying all doctors make stuff up, but just know, look back at how your grandparents ate. I look at my grandparents and I'm just like, they have everything in balance, but it's all here that's different. It's all the mental, the mind is much more accepting of life and accepting and being in the moment. They're like trees. There's this inner stillness. They're not thinking at age 70 of their MTHFR gene and the detox pathways. That shouldn't be happening. If that's you, you are focusing so much energy on something that you should not be focusing on, in my opinion. That is not health. That's control. That's fear. So you want to be living from a place of living and then doing work there versus doing it out of fear and trying to be in control and what we call displaced anxiety, right? Hopefully that helps some of you, because I repeat that often with my patients that ask me a lot of questions. And, you know, I had some of you who are 78 and you're writing all these things out, and I'm going, what is making and motivating this person to even ask this question? That's what I'm more interested in. What is it that they really need? Okay. All right. Doesn't mean both estrogen and testosterone are high if sore breasts before period. Estrogen for sure, or the bad kind. Testosterone maybe, maybe not. It's the mother. It can convert to estrogen. Some dark hairs on chin. Yeah, it could be. Doesn't mean that the liver is involved. Always the liver is involved. Always. What does it mean if testosterone is high and not converting to estrogen? Good question. There might be a mitochondrial issue, but I want to check if you're aromatizing testosterone well. So the Dutch test will show you all the pathways and if DHEA is high, and that's why testosterone is high or not. But you might not be exercising enough, and doing more resistance training or HIIT training to burn up that testosterone will help. All right, guys, I am going to say goodbye to you for now. I will see you guys in the next Facebook Live. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the Facebook group. Okay, bye-bye.